Alright, hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at this Irwin Vise-Grip self-adjusting wire stripper. The idea behind this tool is you don't need to stick the wire in any particular hole as traditional wire strippers. So all you have to do is stick the wire in here and go. So it's self-adjusting, kind of saves some of the hassle and some of the thinking. I've been using this tool for a little while now. It's definitely a tool not without its flaws. We'll talk about those flaws in a little bit here. But let's just quickly go over some of the features. Over here you have a wire stopper, so you could measure how much insulation you want to strip off. I really find myself not really using that. I just like to put it down here and just eyeball it. It's just, I guess I'm kind of lazy. And I do see this possibly, breaking off. It is just kind of a little plastic thingy. If it does break off, it's not really a big deal because honestly, you don't really need it. Over here you have a micro adjust knob. So sometimes you do need to adjust if it's not stripping right. So over here, just like any traditional set of wire strippers that are multi-feature, over here you have a set of wire cutters. Those kind of suck. I just use a pair of dikes. They are just there if you need it in a pinch. Over here you have your crimping section. It does an okay job just like any other multi-wire strippers. But really, I just like to use a set of dedicated crimping tools. It's just there if you need it. So let's just quickly discuss some of the flaws. I've been using this for a little while now, kind of a mixed bag of use, but mostly low voltage wire, T-stat wire. I've been changing a lot of T-stats out. For the most part, I do like it, but definitely it's a tool not without its flaws. For instance, it does need quite a bit of room to work, so if you're working in a situation with not a lot of room or you don't have a lot of slack in the wire, this is probably not going to work. So sometimes I find myself grabbing the traditional set of wire strippers. One of my favorite things to use this for is the insulation on T-stat wire. It takes it off real nice. It saves a lot of hassle. It just makes life a little easier for T-stat installation. Sometimes low-grade T-stat wire, like Chinese T-stat wire, or if it's really oily, this doesn't like to work on that. So sometimes you do need to make some adjustments, but for the most part, this works out pretty well. So enough talking, I have some wire over here. I'm going to show you how this tool works. Okay, over here I have an assortment of wire. Let's start with this low voltage sprinkler wire. This is 18 gauge. The insulation on this is really stiff and really heavy duty. It's meant to be run outdoors, underground, take the sun, all that good stuff. I don't know how many wires are in here. There's like 6 or 8 wires, but it is pretty thick. It's pretty stiff. There is a string to pull in there to strip the insulation off, but you do need to cut it open a little bit to get to that string. It could barely fit in here. Let's see if I could squeeze it in there. It is on the thick side. Let's put it in there. So let's just strip it and see what happens. There it goes. It was a little difficult because it is on the thicker side of things, and it did kind of chew it a little bit, the black insulation, not a real big deal. But like I said, this insulation on this sprinkler wire is really thick, really stiff and heavy duty, so I was able to strip it out. There's that string. So let's just strip some of this. There's a yellow 18 gauge. Stripped it out, no problem. Let's try another one. Make sure I get it in the camera this time. There you go. So it works out pretty good for the most part, as you can see. Over here, I believe I have some more T-stat wire. This is made in the USA. I believe this is 18 gauge as well. Yep, 18 gauge. The wire in there inside is really oily. This tool doesn't really like oily wires and like the cheap insulation Chinese wires, but it doesn't like the oily wires, but it'll take the insulation off. There you go. Real easy, like butter. This wire on here is really oily for some reason. It's like a little too slick. It is, I can feel the oil on it. It tends not to like that. Kind of understandable. But it still does strip it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, when it's real oily like that, this tool doesn't like that. But it does work. And it does, if I could get the camera to focus. There you go. It kind of like chews up the other section that you're going to leave behind because it's so oily you can't get a good grip on it. But it still does work. So there's that guy, so that doesn't work so good on oily wires. So over here I have some older T-stat wire. Not really sure what gauge it is, it doesn't really say. But we'll just stick that in there. And let's see, how about right there? And see, it didn't really, it just took a little bite out of it. So this is really old T-stat wire. So we're going to make a little adjustment. We're going to go turn it to the plus. We want to take a little more bite. So let's try that again. Let's try it in a little different section. That way it has a better chance of working. See, there we go. Sometimes you need to adjust it a little bit because every insulation is different. And this is really old wire, but still does work. Sometimes, like I said, you need to make that adjustment. There we go. We'll try one more. Stick that in there. There you go. I think I need to adjust it a little less now. Okay, over here I have some Romex style wire. This is a solid gauge 14-3 wire. So we're going to stick this in here. And this is almost like just as thick as that black sprinkler wire. But it does fit in there. So we're just going to try to take off some of the shielding and see what happens. Here we go. Okay, that worked out pretty good. It did not nick really any of the wires in there. Separate some of the wires here. Now let's strip this white wire. See that? Perfect. Strip this red wire. 14 gauge. Did a real good job on this. Okay, over here I have some 10 gauge stranded wire. This is the thickest wire it's rated for. This wire has that clear shielding on it, the chemical resistant, oil resistant shielding. It tends not to like that stuff, but it does do it. So let's put it in there. And it did strip it pretty well. You know, it kind of chewed it off a little bit, but this insulation is really tough. And it's pretty thick, you know, it has all that extra coating on it. So it works out pretty good there. It didn't nick the wires at all. So this is like a old household extension cord type of thing. So it has some weird thick insulation on it. So you just kind of, you know, peel it apart like that. Separate the two wires. And we'll just stick that in there and see what happens. See that? Stripped it no problem. And it is kind of an odd insulation on this. Let's try this other side. There you go. No problem. Didn't nick the wires one bit. Alright, there you go. As you saw, this tool performs pretty well for the most part. It does have its negatives, but for the most part the positives outweigh the negatives. You know, there's certain situations where you need, you know, more room to work. As you see, it's more bulky. It takes more room to strip a wire versus a set of traditional wire strippers. And if you don't have much slack in the wire, you know, you need to use your traditional wire strippers. So definitely don't throw away your traditional wire strippers by any means. But this is just a nice tool. It makes the life a little easier, you know, especially I love it for stripping T-stat wire.